Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, details on the Defense Department's push to penalize Senator Mark Kelly for what the administration calls seditious behavior. Also tonight, we'll hear what education advocates are looking for from the upcoming legislative session, and a program looks to evaluate the cognitive health of the homeless and unhoused. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
For over 65 years, AARP has empowered people to choose how they live as they age. As a wise friend and fierce defender, we advocate for better health, financial security, and stronger communities. We are AARP.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. An Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer shot and killed a driver in Minneapolis today. The 37-year-old woman was shot in front of a family member during a traffic stop. This video appears to show the agent bumped as the car was turning to drive away. President Trump and federal officials say that the woman was weaponizing her car and was shot in self-defense. Eyewitnesses say otherwise.
It does not appear aggressive to me. I think that if they felt like they were in any danger, they could have stepped 2 feet backwards. I think, in my opinion, that this was an unnecessary use of force in a reaction to imagined danger.
I can't share all the information that I know, but what I do know is that the ICE agent that shot somebody should be arrested effective immediately.
The governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis were blunt in their assessments of the shooting and ICE's presence in the city.
We've been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety, that someone was going to get hurt. Just yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV, and today that recklessness cost someone their life.
We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this ICE presence in Minneapolis. Not only is this a concern that we've had internally, we've been talking about it. They are not here to cause safety in this city. What they are doing is not to provide safety in America. What they are doing is causing chaos and distrust. They're ripping families apart. They're sowing chaos on our streets. And in this case, quite literally killing people.
Today's shooting caught the attention of Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, who appeared this afternoon on CNN.
There is some indication right now the next city that they're going to, I think it's fair to say, target is Phoenix, Arizona, where my constituents live. I am seriously concerned about them going in there and terrorizing communities and that don't benefit.
The New York Times reports that in the past 5 months, immigration officers have fired on at least 9 people in 5 states and Washington, D.C. The shootings all involve vehicles. In each case, the officers say that the agents fired in self-defense, fearing that they'd be struck by the vehicle. The move by U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to punish Arizona Senator Mark Kelly for reminding military service personnel that they have the right to refuse illegal orders. That move by Hegseth raises questions about the legality of the Defense Secretary's actions. And for more on that, we welcome Frank Rosenblatt. He's retired Army JAG Lieutenant Colonel. He serves as president of the National Institute of Military Justice. He's also a professor at the Mississippi College School of Law. It's good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. What exactly did the Defense Secretary say regarding Senator Kelly?
As has been expected for about a month, he gave a statement on X saying that the reckless and seditious behavior of Senator Kelly would result in a censure and the beginning of the process to determine whether he should be reduced in grade from retirement. Captain Kelly is at grade of 06 and receives retirement for his 25 years. And so this would be an attempt to move him down 1 grade.
So, and this is what the Defense Secretary and the Pentagon, they mean by administrative action, correct?
Yes, the censure in itself, he was issued a censure memorandum. For those on active duty, that can be a career killer. And in the case of a retired officer, it really doesn't mean anything. But there's now going to be this process to determine whether he should be reduced in grade.
And the defense secretary said that Senator Kelly, conduct prejudicial to good order and discipline, accused him, Hegseth, and others of war crimes and surrounding himself with yes men. Is this the kind of thing that a United States senator who happens to be a retired military can't say?
Just about anyone who knows military law, no matter what their political spectrum, would say that this is an overreach. Many would say this is ridiculous. I did the math. I calculated about a 0.0% chance of success on the merits of reducing him in grade in retirement. Even if he were in the military, the 133 and 134, these are what we call the vague articles: conduct unbecoming an officer, conduct to the prejudice of good order and discipline. And even for an active duty member, these wouldn't have really held water. And for a retiree, much less a senator whose job is oversight of the Defense Department, these just really don't have any merit to them.
With that in mind, Kelly says that he's going to, quote, fight with everything I've got. What's he got?
Well, that remains to be seen. The Secretary of Defense Hegseth announced that the Navy would come up with a process to look at a board, and that Senator Kelly would have a chance to respond within 30 days. Senator Kelly has an elite team of lawyers with the Arnold and Porter law firm. They know what they're doing. They are going to fight. This really isn't about the few $100s in retirement. I think that Senator Kelly recognizes that these are larger principles here about the separation of powers between the Senate's ability to conduct oversight of the Defense Department. And Ted, I'll just say what really surprised me about the Secretary's announcement is those of us who were watching this, we thought this would be about the video of the 6 members and what they said. And actually in the censure letter, what Secretary Hegseth said is he wasn't very happy about Senator Kelly's statements from June 2025 to December 2025. In other words, he's just not happy that Senator Kelly has been conducting oversight over the Defense Department.
Indeed, and that's where the part where he said, surrounding himself with yes men and accusing me and others of war crimes. He's a United States senator. It would seem as though that kind of verbiage would not be that unusual from the Senate floor or anywhere on Capitol Hill.
And we can certainly say that that the Senate has an important role, because much of what's happened in the first year of the second Trump administration has really been boundary pushing. And so military members, they're going to have questions when they're told to do things that are very different than how they've operated otherwise. So there are questions out there about orders. We want our military members to be emboldened and confident. And when they're asked to do things that they have some serious concerns about, that ultimately is a question of our military effectiveness.
Hegseth also warned of further administrative action. He warned of criminal prosecution. Criminal prosecution for what, would you imagine?
That was a threat. This has no merit. If there was any merit to this, then we would have seen an announcement of court-martial charges and not this more minor censure and administrative process.
So again, is it illegal to remind the military that they can and should disobey legal orders? Is that in some way illegal, in some way disruptive to national security and defense?
I think there are some hurt feelings over this, but this is not a violation of the Uniform Code. This is something that I have done and many others have done. And, I think that this is an important part of the national security conversation in our country. If we can draw more attention to what the rules actually are for military obedience and orders, these are important issues. And I think that the country has been engaged in a fruitful conversation about how this fits within some of the recent military actions.
Last question. We do appreciate your time here. Could Kelly be ordered back into active duty and summarily face a court-martial? Because I've heard that possibility floated around there. Is that viable?
I think that while this administrative process, I think, shows that Secretary Hegseth was very poorly advised, I think that whoever was advising him did recognize that there would really be some substantial problems doing that. To pull him back on active duty would pull him away from his full-time duties as a senator. This just isn't any sort of workable possibility, especially for what's at stake here. Speech as a senator who happens to be a military retiree.
Interesting. Retired Army JAG Lieutenant Colonel Frank Rosenblatt talking about, again, Senator Mark Kelly and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth going at it. Sir, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ted.
Ah, the peaceful villages of Midsummer host to lovely parties, friendly neighbors, and
she's been murdered.
Dead bodies.
There's a surprising quantity of dead people in there.
But Tom Barnaby is on the case.
Oh, I see.
And he has a new partner.
Your tie is crooked. Thank you, sir. And you don't get Sundays off when you work with me. Great.
The fiendishly clever series.
Stop! Please.
Midsummer Murders.
Thursday night at 8 on Arizona PBS.
Nothing like the Revolutionary War had been fought. It's a radical idea.
Ordinary Americans won the war. I don't think you can be patriotic enough about them.
Everyone's convinced the virtue of the cause is helping them win.
Friday night at 8 on Arizona PBS.
We're hearing from advocates of various issues this week to learn about what they're looking for from the state legislature this upcoming session. We've heard from business interests and public health advocates, and tonight the focus is on education. And joining us is Marisol Garcia, president of the Arizona Education Association. Good to have you back. Good to see you again. Education priorities for the legislature. What do you want to see?
Funding, we need to talk about funding. We are losing teachers at a drastic rate at this point. We always want to talk about the vouchers and the fact that they are crippling our budget. And then we really want to have good conversations about how do we keep teachers in their positions. It's not just about paying for them, but what learning conditions can be created.
And I want to get to all of those in a second here, but the impact of a tight budget this go around on what you want to see and what you don't want to see.
Yeah, we can't see any more cuts to public education. We've dealt with a steady stream of just keeping us whole, and that's been really difficult to keep, and so we really want to keep us there.
Prop 123, not extended last set. Why wasn't that extended? What was going on there?
Got really messy at the end. Special interests got involved and really derailed really great conversations that were happening, and special interests got involved and decided they wanted to change everything that we had worked on.
Give me an example here.
Yeah, they wanted to constitutionalize vouchers, and they wanted to make it so that the voters would say, yes, we want to give raises to teachers, but we also are going to piggyback that with constitutionalizing vouchers into our Constitution.
Are you comfortable, though, taking more money out of the corpus, the state land trust there, which would be used again for educational purposes? There's always a concern with that. Are you concerned with that?
At this point, we really just need to have some conversations. Let's data it out. Let's look at percentages long term. We've seen success with Proposition 123.
Yeah, there's also been concern and a divide between where the money should go. Teachers only or teachers and support staff?
Yeah.
Where do you stand?
Every staff member at the school district is really important to us. There is no way I could do my job in 8th grade if I don't have people that are qualified there to help me do it.
And the extension, okay, the extension would be another 10 years?
That, again, something we can talk about. I think we're ready for anything to be on that table to discuss, whether it's forever, 10 years, 20 years.
If it's teachers only and the support staff is not included, is that dead on arrival? Would you like to see that dead on arrival, or is that something, it's not what you want, but it's something?
No, I mean, for us, we have to have these holistic conversations on how to fix public schools and the funding mechanisms that we currently have. What we currently have is for each district to decide, and we don't know why we need to veer from that.
Interesting. All right. Early childhood education. What you looking at?
Oh, we love it. We wish that the state would commit to early childhood education, but even more so, have fully funded kindergarten. We don't have that in this state. One of few states in the country that doesn't fully fund kindergarten.
Fully fund pre-kindergarten as well, preschool?
Of course. Every longitudinal data set says that more students have earlier on their literacy rates, their exploring rates, everything goes up.
Can that be done, though? Can that go up? At a time when the budget is going to be really squeaky.
I mean, everything we hear about other tax cuts. It's a priority of the majority parties to have tax cuts. Why shouldn't we be talking about where we're investing to make our community stronger?
You refer to the teacher training, teacher recruiting, teacher pay, just keeping them there, teacher retention. Again, what kind of money are you looking at? What would need to happen? And can it be something more than money?
Yeah, I mean, everything has to be included. So we look at class sizes as an issue. How do we deal with class sizes? We need to hire more educators because that lowers our class size. We need more adults on campus to keep families and students safe, feeling they're safe in their schools. We need to hire more people. So, we can think about raises. We also need to think about healthcare. Everyone's dealing with healthcare issues. Across the state, teachers are seeing 2 to 3% raises every year, but then their healthcare comes in and eats up 4%. So we have to have good conversations.
And we've had a lot of conversations on this show regarding teacher retention
Yes.
and recruitment. And a lot of what we hear, when it really boils down to everything, is respect.
Yes.
And it sounds like teachers still don't feel respected.
Yes.
Can the legislature do anything about that?
Yeah, they can stop putting in bills that will tell us what to do when they haven't actually been a teacher. If they actually could stop and think, what can we take off their plates so that they can get down and get in there with kids and help them learn? Instead, last year there were over 100 bills that were telling us what we had to do with no funding attached to it, and it changes our workday.
But I think they would say that they're hearing from constituents and they don't want their kids taught X, Y, and Z, and they want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Then, yeah,
Doesn't
they
that
should
make sense?
Yeah, refer them to the school districts, because that is a good conversation to have at a school board meeting. That happens every other week that they can go and talk to them.
Equitable school funding, an issue as well?
Yes, of course. We have to think about the fact that Arizona is a very different place across in every zip code. When I talk to teachers up at the north tier of our state, very different housing or issues, healthcare issues. When you go down to the south, very different rural areas where we're thinking about the fact that each school district is the main employer in that area. So a lot of different places.
When that is brought up, what do you hear from legislators?
They don't really seem to have a good grasp on what the constituents want, and they seem to kind of go in a different way. And we see that a lot with vouchers.
Yeah, well, and let's get to vouchers.
Yeah.
ESAs, it's like the third rail down there, but it sounds like, I don't know, you tell me, is there a movement to get some sort of guardrails? I think they're here to stay, but guardrails in place is also a different matter. What are you hearing?
I mean, we just did a poll, and 70% of Arizonans want something done about this out-of-control program. I see it as turning on a water faucet, walking away and just watching your house flood and not caring that we are out of control. $1 billion last year.
I know, I called it a third rail down at the Capitol. Is it the third? I mean, will anything happen?
I'm looking to make sure that if this is such a critical issue for this state, it should be the #1 priority of the Education Committee hearings, which will happen in 2 weeks, and it should be a #1 priority because we hear it from voters and from constituents and teachers.
Would you be surprised if you did not get a hearing on this?
Not surprised, but well, there's lots of options that we can deal with changing laws.
Last question, how much of what we're talking about is what you would like to see as opposed to what you don't want to see, as opposed to basically playing defense?
Yeah, I hate playing defense. I mean, as a teacher, we're always trying to expand and think about what opportunities are out there. I really think that we need the legislature to stop trying to keep their jobs and really try to make public schools better. It's not that hard.
Marisol Garcia, Arizona Education Association, we appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ted.
Along State Route 80 in southeast Arizona is the town of Tombstone. 2 miles west, at the end of a dusty road, stands a monument to its founder, prospector Ed Schieffelin. In 1878, Schieffelin sought riches in the untamed Mule Mountains, despite being warned that the only thing he'd find there was his tombstone. Schieffelin cheated death and discovered several rich silver strikes that launched a boom and established the town. By the 1880s, Tombstone was the county seat, filled with wild and colorful characters whose escapades were chronicled in what is now Arizona's oldest continuously published newspaper, the Tombstone Epitaph. The boom had ended by the mid-1890s. Over the following decades, Tombstone transformed itself into a town Ed Schieffelin wouldn't recognize by turning legends of its lurid past into tourist gold and billing itself as the town too tough to die.
A recent study found that over 80% of older adults at the state's largest homeless shelter show signs of mental impairment. And tonight, as part of our monthly AARP sponsors segment that highlights issues important to older adults in Arizona, we hear about Circle the City's Memory Clinic. It looks to evaluate cognitive health of those experiencing homelessness. Amber Porter is a nurse practitioner at the Memory Clinic, and she joins us now. Welcome to Arizona Horizon.
Thank you.
Circle the City's Memory Clinic. What is that?
So we launched this when that data came out. It was an ASU Circle the City CAS project, actually, about 1.5 years ago. And we started seeing this need, and Circle the City offers health care to those that are homeless and need medical care. So that's our focus. But when we realized that over 80% and actually upwards towards 90% of seniors entering into sheltered living were experiencing cognitive impairment, we launched into action. So that is what started our memory program.
80 to 90% of seniors at shelters are showing some impairment, huh?
Yeah.
Do you think that has to be higher than the general population? I mean,
it is, but so is that population in general for the unhoused.
Yes.
So what we know is that that is the largest growing population of unhoused. And as you can imagine, going from being homed and housed to suddenly houseless, that increases stress and anxiety and creates a whole other host of problems.
I want to get to the process of how you determine the assessment and these sorts of things, but back to what you just said, how do you know this is not just a very tense, anxious, depressing period as opposed to cognitive decline?
Right. So they start with a screening tool that's commonly used in the community called Montreal Cognitive Assessment. It's commonly known as a MoCA. It is pretty sensitive. Some of the tests aren't, but it is. And it's administered when they enter into sheltered living. Now, if that score is looking as though somebody is cognitively impaired, meaning under the score of 26 to 30 is normal, then it's not up to the shelter to determine that, it's up to the clinician. So then they come to me as a rapid referral. Community neurology appointments can take 6 months. Mine's like pretty quick, like a week.
Yeah.
So then I start sleuthing through that, a detailed assessment. I spend time with them. Behavioral health spends time with them. And truly, you're correct. There are some that I'm like, hold on, I can't deal with the memory issue until I handle your depression.
And if you handle that depression, the memory issue might mitigate.
For sure. Which is why early identification and intervention and global holistic care is so important.
Other things like brain imaging and CAT scans, and are they involved as well?
They are.
Really?
Yes. So I start every visit looking at depression scores for the older. So I do both. We call it a PHQ-9. It's a general depression scale. And I do an anxiety score, and then I do some specific to geriatrics, like what most people would know in a Medicare evaluation, like the Medicare Wellness. And then everybody is given the opportunity for a CAT scan. If their scores warrant it and it looks like, boy, I probably really need to know what that brain looks like, then I'll order the CAT scan and discuss those results with them.
And when you get the results, what happens? What happens to those who are obviously doing pretty well and those who are obviously not doing so well? What's next?
Yeah, and of course it's a case-by-case basis because the most vulnerable and the one is the one that we care about for sure. You know, everybody deserves a fighting chance at tomorrow looking brighter. So if somebody is really vulnerable and at risk, a couple of things can happen. We can advocate for them to be out of the congregate living environment and into a more singular housing like The Haven, which is Cass's senior shelter, Ozanam Manor, which is run by St. Vincent de Paul. There's some other community partners that have assisted living that have partnered so kindly with us so that we can help get them there in a timely manner.
Yeah, I was going to ask about partnerships. That's a big deal, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Relationships with our community.
Yes.
I couldn't do what I do if I didn't have them.
The reaction, we're running out of time here, but real quickly, the reaction from those you've tested, those you've cared for, that's got to be rewarding, I would think.
Yeah, I'm proud to say that myself and my team, which is pretty small but mighty, we are working on our 12th housed person since our program started. Unbelievable, and we have personally taken them to their new home.
Yeah, and the reaction, they have to, I guess the reaction depends on cognitive ability, but they have to know something good's happening.
They do, and they never forget us.
I'll bet they don't. Amber Porter, Circle the City Memory Clinic, where to find out more? Is there a place online to find out more?
Sure. Well, actually, you could call Circle the City, and that number is 602-776-0776.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on your work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Want to be more informed? Arizona PBS delivers news and analysis with multiple perspectives, thanks to financial support from you and
Primavera Online School now offers kindergarten through 5th grade with a project-based curriculum, digital learning activities, and small group instruction. To learn more, visit chooseprimavera.com.
The LA firestorm was one of many recent fire disasters causing unprecedented destruction. Now these tragic fires seem inevitable, but does it have to be that way? I'm Maya May, the host of PBS's Weathered, and I'm on a journey to understand the aftermath of the LA firestorm, how we're facing this moment of extreme change, and how we can prevent the next tragedy before it's too late.
Tonight at 9 on Arizona PBS.
Hello, I'm Paula Kerger, president of PBS. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of the